who has missed one of the two workshops. Okay, so there will be a little bit of repetition in terms of the review of the first two workshops. The third question is, who has the germ of an idea or a venture concept that they have developed a little bit and could, test these concepts against the venture concept that you have in mind? Very few. Okay, so I'm going to assume that not very many people have thought of venture ideas. Okay, so today's workshop is on validation. And what I want to do is, I apologize for those people who have been coming to these workshops on a regular basis, that for the amount of time that I'll take to do a review, but it's good for people who are just showing up now. So our first workshop was about a reality check. The second workshop was about how do we, I think I'm supposed to put this one. The second workshop was about how do we find great venture concepts that we should spend our energy working on. Test.
No? Yes? Okay. Okay. I'm sure you were hearing me before this too, right? Okay. How do we create new ideas? This one is going to be about validation. Next one is going to be about strategies, IP strategy, sales strategy, marketing strategy, etc. Workshop number 5 on funding, financial projections, and narrative. There is a glue that ties these all together that I'm going to talk to you about in a second, and these all build on top of one another. That's why I wanted to do a quick review with you. So, reality check was the first workshop. Now, part of our job is, especially with students, to expose them to reality without discouraging them. As you know, the country is very interested in entrepreneurship. Every school has an entrepreneurship program. There's incubators, accelerators, more than we can handle. Every single building that can't find a tenant is turned into an incubator or an accelerator. But let's look at some reality here too. So this is from the Wall Street Journal by a professor at the Harvard Business School, so we'll assume that he has enough credibility to tell us the truth. The date is 2012, and he says 3 out of 4 startups fail. These are ones that venture capital actually invested in. So after an investment is made, after due diligence and so on, 3 out of 4 fail. Of course, everybody hears of Google and Yahoo and Facebook, etc. The dead ones are buried in the middle of the night extremely quietly so that nobody will know about them. The other reality check is that we see, so I'm an angel investor myself, I've been one for the last 15 years or so. So we get lots of applications. Mr. Investor, we're going to give you 30 times your original investment, 40 times, 50 times your original investment, but the reality is ROI for return on investment, failing to reach the projected ROI, 95% of startups fail. So these are some of the things that we need to take into account as we look at the big picture of what a difficult task we're embarking on in entrepreneurship. The Kaufman Foundation. An extremely credible foundation. In May 2012, they issued a report. The bottom line was that all venture capital firms in the U.S. averaged overall, for the last 10 years, the returns have been 0%. Nothing. Averaged overall VC. There's a few outliers on both coasts that deliver the highest returns. So like everything else in our country, VC returns are also becoming more and more polarized. 80% of VC investments are going to 3 states, California, New York, Massachusetts. The rest of the country is sharing the 20%. And who do you think has the higher returns? The Coast VC does. So we have to be super, super careful about venture capital assertion that, I won't say an assertion, but the common belief that venture capital knows how to pick winners, for example.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is the rate of success in California, New York, and Massachusetts higher than the rest of the country?
So I don't know of any study. So my intuition is that it is. For example, those get out of Y Combinator and get into Kleiner Perkins and so on and so forth. NEA in New York, they have good results. And most VC say we're trying our best to get to that those outliers' performance. So I don't have a study to quote to you, but my general impression is that yes.
I'm wondering if the success is there or just that's where the money is.
And is there a correlation between the two? There is success because there is money. Probably so.
Okay.
As I mentioned, I'm an angel investor, so this is data from all organized angel investment groups in the country. Of the 100 submissions that we get asking for us for investment, let's say of the 1,000 that we get, only 6 of them give us a 5 times or better return on our investment. So in one sense, the success rate is 6 over 1,000. So that's a challenge. That could be interpreted as bad news. The good news is if you believe you belong in the top 6 out of 1,000, then entrepreneurship is where you ought to be. Those are the type of people that we're looking for. Now, despite these 6 out of 10 success rate, angel investment is a good business. Why is it a good business? Because this is, again, data from the Kaufman Foundation. Over a 3.5-year holding period, in other words, from the time of investment to the time when we get an exit, get our money back, the average angel investor, averaged across the entire country, has gotten 2.6 times the amount of money that he or she invested in startups. Why is this the case? 50% of our investment as angels go to zero. They die. 50% of them die. After all that due diligence, after all that bragging about how smart we are and so on, we're no better than the tossing of a coin because 50% of them die. What saves us are those few exits where we get 30 times our money back or more, which covers all our losses down this way, plus gives us a return of this type. So this portfolio theory where I'm going to invest in 20, 30, 50 companies and I'm going to pray that there's a Facebook in there that will save me is the dominant paradigm. My paradigm is, why the heck are we this bad? 50%, no better than a coin flip. I hate to be called no better than a coin. So I'll do whatever I can to improve these odds. This is why I'm here. This is why I have the job that I have. So, I mentioned in the first few workshops, I started 3 companies consecutively and was able to exit all 3 companies. 2 of them were acquired by a public company. 1 of them was acquired by a private equity firm. But my mentality is such that I'm not saying this to brag. I wanted to analyze it. You know, what worked? Why did this happen? Because the odds were so much against me. And my conclusion was this combination of soft skills, shall we call them, coupled with hard skills. So again, the reason why I'm here at this university is that we know we can teach this stuff, and we can teach it really, really well. We can hold business plan to the same quality as we would a biology PhD dissertation. Just like, no Mickey Mouse PhD dissertation can leave Washington University, we could make it so that no Mickey Mouse business plan will leave Washington University either. This part, I guess if you didn't learn it from your mom, we may not be able to teach you. This section of what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. There are people who think that we can have some impact on this side too, but the secret sauce is on this side. I used to tell my wife when we had our companies, 90% of what I do is psychology and 10% is everything else. Technology development, sales, dealing with the IRS, the FDA, etc., etc. Most of it was psychology. The other things we can teach are how to be book smart, how to play chess, how to strategize. And the things that are tougher to teach are how to play poker and how to be street smart. This is part of the reason why virtually all tech startups are started either by immigrants or children of immigrants, because of the necessity of immigrants to have these skill sets embedded in them. Otherwise, they will have a much harder time surviving. That is what accounts for that statistic, I think. So at Washington University, we will apply the mentor and tormentor principle. So what that principle is that we are not able to pick winners. It's impossible. We don't know how to pick winners, but we know how to pick at holes. So when I look at your business plan, I will keep constantly picking at every single hole until we plug those holes as best as we can. And our objective is to create people who say things like this back to us. I'm going to go get a job. You tormented me, but you did not discourage me, is our objective in terms of our approach to entrepreneurship. My personal base assumption is the following. Parenthetically, I never took a business class. I'm an engineer by training, and I have made a business out of applying the principles of science of engineering into business, and it worked really well for me. So my theory is that everything in a business plan, in its essence, can be boiled down to numbers. And numbers are where we are much more comfortable because they provide a platform for us to discuss and debate, whereas words give us room to hide. I hate reading a 100-page business plan. I won't read a 100-page business plan because there's an infinite number of places to hide in a 100-page business plan. So what I like to see is the numbers and then engage in a dialogue with the founder to give him an opportunity to defend and explain those numbers to me. So those of you who have come to the first two workshops have seen the 3 layers of tools that we use. An initial venture concept assessment tool, a financial story builder tool, and a performance metrics benchmarking tool. So this is a qualitative assessment tool. I have to play this balance now of not boring the folks who have heard this stuff before versus providing some information to the folks who are joining the workshop for the first time. We'll see how that balance goes out. This tool tries to give the ability to any person, even with zero background in business, the ability to build a defensible financial story, the projections of a company, create a company from scratch, the financial story of a company from scratch. And this is our most sophisticated tool that we've been using as investors that I'll pull up in a few minutes. So this was the platform of the first workshop about reality check. Odds are extremely slim. There may be, I'm very terrified that there may be a bubble about entrepreneurship. We have to be extremely rigorous about the fact that the hit rate is incredibly low and what we have to do to improve that hit rate. That's the main message. Any questions about this reality check, particularly any negative feedback, any pushback, because this is a little bit against conventional wisdom. If I was a VC person here, I'd probably be telling you something slightly different, but I'm trying to base everything I say on the facts that I have.
Do you really think that the time should be spent most people that I've come across who are doing entrepreneurship aren't planifying everything before they engage. The planification in a lot of cases burns up any energy that the person might need to go ahead and actually get things going.
So, good question.
Especially if it's the soft side that really matters.
So the soft side really matters, but without the hard side, you can have all the soft side you want.
But you learn as you go. A lot of those numbers don't mean anything.
Yeah.
You're actually doing something you're in the field.
I'm going to assume that you were not at the first two workshops. Okay. So again, with apologies to the rest of the people who were, at some point I'm going to pull up the workshop and answer your question. Okay? And I need to find a more general solution to this phenomenon of the continuity of the workshops. I know that people are busy, they're professionals, they can't make it to every workshop, so that's something that I need to resolve. But worst case, come and see me at any time that you like, and we can take as deep a dive as you like associated with your question. Yes, sir.
Apologies for not attending previous workshops.
No worries.
If the idea is one of a not-for-profit nature, then do you still insist on quantifying in some sense the benefits?
Yes, and in fact, that's becoming the dominant paradigm, especially the new funders, the new philanthropic generation, is asking to see measurable outcomes. And I do realize how difficult it is to measure impact. In fact, impact measurement is really a worthy endeavor. I have some ideas about that too, how we could bring in some of the science and engineering principles into the measurement of impact, benchmarking, and so on and so forth. But that's an area that we have to take care of in order for nonprofits to survive in the long run. How do we quantify impact? So that too may deserve a one-on-one conversation with you. So, but just to complete that, return on investment, cash on cash, cash invested, cash gotten back is extremely easy. And there is a new generation that's interested in, cash return plus the impact return and summing them up together. It's really is a deep topic that really deserves the right type of time to discuss it in. So the next workshop that we had was on ideation. And the idea here is, how do we come up with great venture concepts? And other than a few outliers, the methodologies, generally speaking, are incremental methodologies as opposed to, here is a world-changing, brand new invention. And I try to categorize these. Again, I don't want to bore the people who have seen these before. The ideas are as follows. A common mistake most founders make, and we see this every day, to solve problems that no one has. And the question that one ought to ask himself or herself is, I need it so much that if it's a really crappy version of something that two people in the garage did, I still want it. If the answer is yes to that question, then you may be onto something good. I know there's exceptions. In some workshops, people ask me, well, do you always have to have a problem? There could be an opportunity and not a direct problem. And people give examples of the computer and so on and so forth. Yes to all, but again, instead of focusing on outliers, we're focusing on probabilities. So the probability of a successful company is higher if there's a problem that is desperately in search of a solution. Pattern recognition. So the process of deconstruction and reconstruction. The ability to break a concept down into its components and then reconstruct it in another area. I gave this example in one of the workshops. So what we do is we deconstruct a venture that we know of. For example, a hypothetical organization called Patients Like Me. These are cancer patients who have a desire to talk to one another and share notes with each other. The platform provides them, the company provides them the platform to talk to one another. It collects anonymized data from these patients and sells it to pharma companies. We'll forget about the ethical part of this for a second. Now I take this model and I apply it to another area. These are people considering divorce. They want to talk to each other. They want to find some information about what happens when you get divorced. This company provides the platform for those folks, and here are the divorce attorneys that respond to questions that they have anonymously, and then the guy says, this person really seems to know what he's talking about. I think I'll hire him, and this company gets a commission. So the idea is to find a successful area and to duplicate that in another virgin area. So this is a subscription service for cosmetics for ladies that was founded by 2 Harvard ladies. So you get small samples of cosmetics every month in a little box, in a beautiful box. And these are my students at the University of Arizona who saw how successful this company was, and they said, we'll do the same thing except in premium roasted coffee. We'll send samples of coffee, and I don't need to read these for you, but what they did was, what are the characteristics that made this company successful? Where is a virgin area that we can implement it in? And why should we believe that we too can be successful in this virgin area? Yes, ma'am.
How did the students with the coffee business know what characteristics made a company successful?
Understood. So at the University of Arizona, our program is a little bit different, the entrepreneurship program. We spent approximately 2 months, 3 months with the students searching for good venture ideas. So, for example, they say to me, I'm their teacher, mentor, they say, well, you know, we're interested in a subscription type area. And I say to them, here is where you should go to find 6, 7 different successful companies in the subscription area, study them, analyze them, and then come back to me and say, this is a virgin area that has not been penetrated yet. And I'll show you some of those sites here in just 2 more seconds. Oh, another really fantastic area of success that I've been seeing is international students taking early stage startups that are demonstrating traction in the US and then transplanting them right over to Mexico or Chile or any other country. That has been extremely successful also. So geographic or application-based transportation of successful business models. The other thing we talked about was trend recognition. So these are, again, my students. What they noticed was ebooks are becoming more and more popular. Personalization, customization is becoming more and more popular. And then the genius of the students was to say that children with autism respond extremely well to ebooks or anything that's electronic because they're very predictable as opposed to human beings. And children with autism love to see things that they're familiar with. So the idea that they came up with was a base story that's written by a creative writer. In the story, there is let's say a toy that's a red elephant or a green giraffe. And what mommy does is take a picture of the child's toy, and that particular toy is incorporated into the base story. So one child sees a green elephant, the other one sees a red giraffe, and the story is adjusted accordingly, and the child is delighted to see his own toy built into the story. So that's an example of trend recognition. One of the things that we worry about as angel investors is too late or too early. So one of the tricks to use is the following. If you can say to yourself, I know this is going to happen in 10 years. I don't know whether it's going to be me who makes it or somebody else, but I'm positive it's going to happen. Now we take that and we try to bring it closer to today. So the example, again, this is a group of my students, is a smart Band-Aid. What they say is 10 years from now, 20 years from now, Band-Aids are going to be smart enough to know when the wound has healed or whether it's been infected, and things will be so cheap that we'll rip out the Band-Aid and throw it in the garbage can. Well, that's too early for that to happen. In which area can patients tolerate the high cost today of a smart Band-Aid? The answer was diabetic patients with foot ulcers. So they started this movement towards smart Band-Aids in an application that could tolerate the high cost of the technology for the time being. So moving away from too early, closer to today is the trick. The slice, and this is dominant theme. as soon as you see anybody that is trying to be everything for everybody, like Craigslist, they are a sitting duck. Because you can pitch to your customers, yes, there is Craigslist out there if you want everything for everybody, but if you're interested in this particular area, then we're the go-to place because we understand you the best. So this happens every day, the slicing of dominant companies into smaller and smaller portions. So again, one of my student teams, a marketplace for housing, zillions of them out there, a marketplace for off-campus housing, specifically for students. If you're a student, come to us. We understand you is the name of the game. Better mousetrap. So we see, especially in a university environment, we see lots of new inventions. But to us, dumb angel investors, everything is a better mousetrap at the bottom line. Whether it's a cancer-fighting drug or a new medical device, it's another better mousetrap. That is the category that it falls into. So the questions are, does it work? How well does it work? How much better than the next best alternative? And are people willing to pay for that, the better alternative that you're providing? And people is critical because people now in medical devices, for example, is the federal government, what used to be called HCFA, for instance, is their reimbursement. Those types of very simple series of questions we ask before getting enamored by the technology itself. This is, again, one of my student teams. They took a spirometer, which is used to exercise your lungs if you have a lung problem, and they gamified it by putting a basketball hoop and a basketball so that the child could try to put the basketball in the hoop. So, gamified, if I were to describe this, I'd say gamified medical devices for children. Now I challenge you to think of other gamified medical devices for children. So this is not copying, this is just deconstruction and reconstruction. Here is one example, deconstructed, reconstructed elsewhere. So for us to be able to do these types of reconstruction and deconstruction, we need to be connected. And it's not just me saying this, it's people like Steve Jobs. What is special about entrepreneurs? They're able to connect experiences that they have had and then synthesize new things out of their experiences. So either you have it or you don't have it, I guess. They have had more experiences or they have thought more about their experiences than other people, is another quote. And the last one is also interesting. One of the things that I'm really determined to do is to pull in more humanities students into entrepreneurship and innovation. The history student, the art student, the music student, because they are the ones actually who have a better understanding of the human experience than the grunt engineer, which I am, for example, or the grunt MBA, who just knows how to do mechanistic calculations for the large corporation. So this is also a requirement. Understanding of the human condition is a necessary component of becoming a great entrepreneur. Now back to your question. I don't know how people started companies before the web, before the internet, because Google knows everything already. It already knows everything that I'm telling you. It's just more convenient for you to hear it from me than look it up in Google. I can do some filtration. So, for example, Y Combinator that we talked about, one of the most successful accelerators, says, startup ideas we'd like to fund. So what a wonderful gift. Let's read it and see what type of startup ideas Y Combinator is looking to fund. Another one, How to Get Startup Ideas, a good article by Paul Graham. So the question is, what is junk and what is relevant? So I guess you need a filtration person like myself to filter these so that you don't spend your time reading junk. Other places, visually, visual.ly is a website where you can look up any startup company and see how much money they have received, at what stages, how much funding has gone into them, so that you can benchmark yourself against a similar company. startup list. This is an endless list of startups in the US. If you're interested in music, go to startup list, type in music, you'll get 100 startups in the US with the word music in the description. Then you do the deconstruction, reconstruction methodology, which is I can take what this company is doing, I can combine it with what this company is doing, and I can create for myself a new venture concept. Not about pure copying, but reconstruction and deconstruction. Trending startups, another one. So this is what we discussed in workshop number 2. Yes, ma'am.
Is there some place online we can get this presentation?
Sure, absolutely. So if you sign up with Jessica or Stacy over there, then they'll send you both the YouTube video of me talking as well as the PowerPoints.
The Scandalware Center has a YouTube channel, which is Scandalware Center, and the first 2 presentations are posted on there, along with links to the presentations. Awesome. Thank you. Sure.
Okay, so that unfortunately took half an hour for the last time. I apologize to those people who have heard this portion before. Reality check, how to come up with good ideas. Now let's say we came up with what we think is a good idea. How do we validate whether it indeed is a good idea or not? I'm using a lot of resources from Steve Blank and Mark Suster here. So, validation at a philosophical level. What is it that we're trying to do? At a philosophical level, what we're really trying to do is to predict the future. We are going to start up a company and we're not prophets. We don't know what the future holds, so we're doing our best guess as to how future reality will reveal itself. That's the game we're in. And Mr. Su says that, maybe we shouldn't even attempt to do so. It is not possible. And this is why, as investors, one of the criteria that we apply is this founder capable of adjusting to surprises, or is he the type or she the type to follow, systematically step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Because there will always be surprises. Adjusting to surprises. Now, this may get at your question a little bit, because this is what I said a few slides ago. Now, my outlook at this is as follows. We do not know what the future has, how truth will reveal itself. We do not know whether customers will buy this thing at $10 or how many customers will buy this thing at $10. What we can do is, at the beginning of time, we can make a guess, and we all admit that we have a high uncertainty associated with everything that we're assuming. We think we can build this product for $100, but it could be built for $50 or $150. We don't know. And as time goes on, the uncertainty starts shrinking, reality starts revealing itself, and either we're onto a failing company, or we're onto a successful company. So the tools that I'm talking about aim to crystallize this feature, this fundamental feature of the environment that we find ourselves in as a startup. So what is the best we can do if we're faced with this type of a situation? The best we can do is some sensitivity analysis. Anything that we don't know, we treat as a variable, and we put that variable on the x-axis, like all engineers do, and we put on the y-axis some important parameter, like how much funding am I going to need, so that we can have an intelligent conversation with the investor, for example, as to if reality reveals itself such that this thing called churn rate is 5%, our net income will be $3 million, but if the churn rate is 15%, it will be $2.4 million. If the sales cycle is 8 months, we need $300,000 of investment. If the sales cycle is 4 months, we need $260,000 of investment. And then we can discuss with them how are we going to persuade people, as well as ourselves, that we can shrink this uncertainty as time goes on. So the tool that I will be talking to you about again is one that enables you to create these types of graphs extremely easily. By just changing a few parameters in the assumptions page, the whole thing will recalculate itself and allow you to do what-if scenarios. The number one startup killer is not the inability to produce the product. People come to us all the time in love with their product, and all they want to talk about is the product. And unless if it's a pharmaceutical or an extremely complex device and so on, we know that you can build the product. If we throw enough money at it, you're going to make it work. Pharma excluded. That's why we, generally speaking, try to stay away from pharma deals that has like 15 years to make any money back. But for other projects, most projects, the killer is not the ability to produce the product. The killer is inability to satisfy this equation. What is this equation? This equation is customer acquisition cost. You have to buy customers. You have to spend money to buy your customers. Sometimes you'll spend a lot of money to buy a customer. For example, Amazon today spends roughly $40 per new customer. Every company spends money to buy customers. So I hear lots of startups come to me and say, we have created X number of customers and we spent zero on marketing. Okay, congratulations. Now you're going to make this a big company that nationally scales. You think that's going to hold? No, you're going to spend money to buy new customers. On this side is the lifetime value of a customer. So Amazon spends $40 to buy a customer. The sum total of all the profits that that customer generates to Amazon during his lifetime of interaction with Amazon must be at least 5 times greater than $40. So if I don't see a $200 profit generation potential in that customer, then I'm on to something bad, and this is not a viable company that I should stay away from. So what are the components of this? Gross profit per sale, because it's the sum total of gross profits. Gross profit means the price of the system minus the cost of the system, excluding the money that you pay your engineers, air conditioning, etc., etc. So the gross profit per sale is important. Repeat customers, recurring revenue. Anytime we see a startup that cannot show us a means of generating recurring revenue, a yellow flag will go up in our heads. And I'll explain to you why. I learned, I had many $50,000 lessons, one of which I will share with you, which was associated with this. That's as an angel investor. And then customer referrals are critical. Why? Because I don't have to buy this customer. You, as my customer, brought me this customer for free. So customer referrals are also very critical. So some real-life examples. I'm going to come back to this one in a second. Let me tell you by an example. So my $50,000 learning experience, which you're getting for free. We were approached by a company, and the company made a deck of cards called Moolah Bucks. And on the cards were extremely attractive to small kids graphic pictures. And the idea was when Johnny helps mommy with the dishes, he gets 1 moolah buck. The next day when he wants a candy bar at the grocery store, mommy says, give me a moolah buck for that candy. So it teaches about, delayed gratification and savings and so on and so forth. So we thought that was a great idea. We invested in the company. And then what we discovered to our dismay is that mommy bought a deck of cards and never came back to us again. So there was no recurring revenue. So this is a long email that I sent to the founder. I said, your cost of customer acquisition is $28 per customer. I'll tell you how I calculated that in a second, in another slide. And the gross profit per customer ranges from $5 to $8. So in order to make any money on this, even though each sale is profitable, for us to make up the money that we spent in buying the customer, so this is not an unprofitable product. This is a profitable product. It just doesn't have enough profit for us to buy customers. So it's dead upon arrival, minus $50,000 of my money. So can we lower the cost of customer acquisition down to $1? Can we have to generate repeat sales somehow. You know, I'm desperate now trying to find a solution to my problem, which is to make my $50,000 back. So this didn't happen, and lost the money. Next cycle around, a company comes to us. They have already raised $680,000. You know, we have 6,900 paying customers, and we have revenue of $600,000 to date, and we want to raise new money. We want to raise $500,000. So I go through these calculations of cost of customer acquisition and so on, and I say, okay, this money that you're raising is going to generate an additional $360,000 for you in revenue, and my conclusion was too little of a raise to make a significant difference in revenue generation, so we're going to pass. So we applied, you know, some mathematics, some assumptions, some benchmarking in making an investment decision of this type. Now I'm going to jump to cost of customer acquisition. I don't think I showed this in either of the two workshops. Does anybody remember this slide? Good. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through this because this will explain to you some of the weirdness that you see. For example, you know, Groupon or Uber raising, you know, $1 billion at $3 billion valuation and so on. Where is this $1 billion going? It's not going to technology development. So let's walk through this slowly. So what I have is a company's projections, year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. And these are the number of customers that they have in each year. And I have created a hypothetical situation where the company is growing at an incredible rate, 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000. And then at the end, I step on the brakes and slow down the growth of the company from 10,000 to 12,000 on purpose to demonstrate the point. The revenue per customer is $1,000, the cost is $250, so each customer is yielding $750 of profit to the company. Okay, with me so far? So great proposition, company growing terrifically and profits are being generated. Now I'm going to assume that the cost of customer acquisition is $200 and does not change over time, and a simplifying assumption. And now I make a critical assumption, which is the sales cycle is 12 months. In other words, I'm in such an industry that if I were to spike my TV spending, ad spending, it would take 12 months before I saw a corresponding spike in my sales. For example, if this was a B2B company trying to sell to businesses. So now the number of customers that I have to acquire on a year-by-year basis because of this long sales cycle is 1 for this year, and I have to buy next year's customers this year. I have to buy year 3's customers in year 2. I have to buy year 4's customers in year 3 because there's a 12-month sales cycle. So when I calculate this, what happens is a loss, a bigger loss, an even bigger loss, an even bigger loss. And companies, startups, are able to raise those types of money to buy the marketplace because at some point, recurring revenues are going to catch up, which is simulated by this slowdown, or you're going to reach some type of saturation point, you turn instantly profitable. So the ridiculous amounts of money that companies are raising through VC is an attempt to buy the market, because of the reliance of the lifetime value of the customers. So this may explain some of the things that you see on the news that sound, unbelievable as to why VC would be tolerating these types of ever-increasing losses for a while. So let's come back to this one. So let me pause here for a second. So the acid test that we deploy as angel investors is the lifetime value at least 5 times higher than the cost of customer acquisition. So cost of customer acquisition. Each channel of approach to customers has a different cost of customer acquisition. For example, I was in the medical device business. We would go to a trade show in Chicago called the RSNA, Radiological Society of North America. You know, pay for the booth, pay for the hotel, pay for the food, pay for the people we have to take out to dinner, sum them all up, divided by the number of actual paying customers that trade show generated for us was the cost of customer acquisition associated with that trade show. And we would watch those numbers like a hawk. If one trade show was better yielding than the other one, we may drop one of those trade shows. I want to go back just for 1 second to this because it reminded me about what happened in my company. So as a founder, if you start a company, you will have a choice. You will have a choice between this type of all or nothing type growth, which is more and more VC money pouring in, or you can slow down the growth rate on purpose so that you can create positive cash flows for your company. In my case, I had an aversion to getting any angel money or any VC money. So if we were to plot what happened with my company, year 1 is here, year 2 we would double, year 3 we would sit at the same level, year 4 we would double again, year 5 we would sit at the same level. Because I did not want to face this type of a situation. I remember very distinctly, went to a trade show in February and we had an equal amount of purchase orders of equal to all our sales in the prior year. So that told me I need to either step on the brakes now and wait for the manufacturing side of my company to catch up with the demand, or I need to go out and raise money. So VC would have never allowed me to do this, flat jump. VC would have said, for many reasons that I won't get into right now, VC would have said, are you crazy? Step on the gas as hard as possible. Go big or die is the general mentality of VC, but it is, bottom line, it's your choice. What was the risk I was taking? That some other guy could come with VC money and wipe me out. So I was doing a trade-off between getting wiped out by a well-capitalized company or in my team's ability to run even faster than them, even though they had more capital. So those are the risks that you take. This is not a game that's a guaranteed win by any means at all. So when a company comes to my office and says, or a team and says, we got a new venture concept and we're working on a startup and so on and so forth, I have 3 questions very quickly. Question number 1, who's the paying customer? Somebody has to part with money for us to start a company. Who's the paying customer? What is the pain that that customer has? And how does your solution resolve that pain in a way better than the alternatives that the customer always has? Those 3 questions. So before they tell me about how wonderful the technology is, who's the paying customer, what's the pain, what is the alternative to that pain? If you can't answer those, then we don't have much to talk about. Now we have to find out about, the steps that we have to take to sell this customer. First, the customer has to find me in this very noisy world, just creating awareness that I even exist. You may have the best thing possible in the whole world, but the customer doesn't know. He's out there somewhere. Explain the value compared to alternatives, make the sale, make the repeat sales, and generate referrals and create profit from each of the transactions that we make so as to increase the lifetime value of the customer. Now, the question of, who's the paying customer? This is another thing that I want to caution to you about. An infinite number of times we hear, it's a huge market. Okay, now let's try to squeeze this market down a little bit to the lowest hanging fruit. Start off with a huge market, end up with 5 real customers in that market. How does that happen? One thing I ask all startups is, okay, start up with your huge market and now let's trim it down. So, parents, lots of parents, huge market. Parents who are concerned about their kids' education, a little bit smaller market. Specifically about the kids' understanding of money, a little bit more smaller market. Who are willing to pay a premium price for a premium finance education app for kids. So try to tighten down the market until it is the best match between your solution. Because saying to me, if we capture 0.1% of this market will be millionaires is completely and utterly meaningless, because 0.1, if you're off by 0.1, is a factor of 2. So squeeze the market down and take a bigger market share of the squeezed market. That's much more believable to me. So squeeze the market down, take a bigger share of that market. The revenue will be equal to 0.1% of the huge market, but it's much, much more believable and strategically much more doable. Okay, so we're now stuck. We're trying to predict the future. I think customers should pay $2 for this, but I have no idea. Maybe they're willing to pay $10 for it, maybe a dime for it. I don't know. What is the cheapest way I can try to get a rough sense as to how much you'd be willing to pay for this? The answer is a survey, a twofold survey. The first one is, how much do you think this should be worth? And I get a distribution of prices. I pick the mean point. And then I do a second survey, which is, how likely would you be to pay $2 for this ball? How likely would you be to pay $2 for this ball, assuming that I describe this ball very clearly to you compared to its alternative? And what I then do is to give you 7 options, starting from absolutely, definitely, positively would buy it at $2 to probably would pay $2, possibly would pay $2, and blah, 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 blah. So what we do is we throw out everything below the absolutely, definitely. Even the probablys won't reach for the wallet is what we assume. And then we discount even the number of people who said absolutely, definitely would purchase. So if 80% of my survey recipients said I would absolutely, definitely buy, that real number could be anywhere from 65% to 95%. What do you think I'm going to pick as an investor? The 65% number of the survey. And that is assuming that you made yourself aware to the general population that you exist and this ball exists. So it's only after that, once you make them aware, then 65% of the population, if the survey population correctly represented the general population you were going after, then this is what we should anticipate seeing. So everybody should do surveys. Now, business to business is much more difficult than business to consumer. Internet is easier, etc., etc. But we're giving a generalized talk right now about the methodology of introducing some rational thinking into this world of business. Estimation of the cost of customer acquisition. I'm going to try to find, first, the worst case. Because if anything happens that's better than the worst case, then it's all gravy, right? So I type in, here's what I try to do. How many people are typing into Google teaching kids about money? Because those are the people to whom I can sell something probably. Because they typed in teaching kids about money. So this free service called SpyFu tells me that 570 people each month are typing in teaching kids about money. And Google says, if you put an ad that only people who typed in teaching kids about money will see, I will charge you $2.17 per click. Because a click means the person typed in this search term and then clicked on your ad and now is at your website. So it will cost you $2.17 to bring a potential customer to your website. Now the key question is the conversion rate. I brought in 100 customers into my website. I spent $217 to bring those customers in. 5 of them actually purchased something from me. So $217 divided by 5 is my cost of customer acquisition. Right? So the cost of customer acquisition is $43.40 for that channel. Now I have to persuade myself that I can make $200 of lifetime profit from this customer if I were to use Google Ads as the only channel with which I can bring customers onto my website. So we watch this like a hawk too. You may have heard of A/B testing, for example. We'll make a slight change, move a button from one place to another, change the color of the website, and we'll watch this number like a hawk. A demo, a video, a referral video. Are these impacting the conversion rate? Because these are critical to us to lower the cost of customer acquisition for ourselves. Now, how do we use this in an investment sense? How do we persuade investors? So investors fall on a spectrum. Some like it very high risk, very high return, and some like it lower risk, lower return. So the ones at the extreme are willing to invest money in you for you to be able to demonstrate some metrics back to us. What is your cost of customer acquisition? I don't know. I need some money to demonstrate to find out what my cost of customer acquisition might be. So I will invest in you $4,100. And again, through the use of this calculations that I described to you, you demonstrated to me that it cost you $41 to generate 100 paying customers. Small data, large uncertainty. Now you say to the investor, now give me $41,000 and I'll generate for you 1,000 paying customers. I used the initial money to create a metric, and now I'm going to use a little bit more money to show you that this metric scales. So this is the name of the game, with small incremental milestone-based steps. In the medical device, I went to this one trade show and I created 3 customers that yielded X amount of profit for me. Now investor, give me enough money to go to 10 trade shows. And initially we'll assume linear relationship. And if you want, we'll be conservative and go to 3 more trade shows until we demonstrate that it is scalable. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but I mean, 67% of the statistics are made up on the spot. So how do you know that any of these really are going to happen consistently? I mean, that's in this one snippet, this one moment in time has happened. It has no bearing on what may or may happen next.
Understood. So back to our original statement. This thing that we're doing, the requirement to keep predicting the future. This is all a feedback loop. In other words, I went to a trade show and I yielded 3 customers. I went to another trade show and that yielded 2 customers. Now I will have to respond to the new data that I'm collecting from the world and re-extrapolate, reforecast my financials. We have no other choice. We don't know how to predict the future, unless if you do.
Well, I mean, I think there's some things, the more seeds you plant, the more trees you're going to get.
Agreed. But I still, it's the investors' money that we're going to put at risk. So I'm not going to be convinced terribly of, let's put a lot of seeds because we can reap more. Demonstrate to me first what is the evidence that you can present to me that 30% of these seeds are going to flower by, at a minimum, referring to benchmarks, the performance of other companies that have successfully gone through the steps that you have gone through.
Just using the seed analogy, it seems to me a lot of times you can grow seed up unless you have fertile ground and you have the right conditions. So benchmarking is kind of like determining what the
Yeah.
fertile ground
Yeah.
is.
Sure, but I mean, if you've gone ahead and you planted a couple seeds in one fertile spot, 1 month, maybe you planted in April, okay? Who's to say that planting in July in that same spot is going to go ahead and yield you any return?
Because nothing is being done, pretty much nothing is being done for the very first time. This is the power of benchmarking. I mean, when I start a medical device company, I will learn everything possible that I can about the 5 companies that did something similar to mine in a different field.
So
Which trade shows do they go to?
So you do basically a copy and steal method to go ahead and figure out what has worked.
Absolutely. And again, I will come back to you with this benchmarking methodology in a few seconds. One of the things that, actually, I may as well mention. So one of the things that we're doing is applying for a grant, because nobody will give us the money, to create a national database of historical performance metrics from startup companies that have survived the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years on as tight a vertical as possible basis. What do I mean by that? We go and, I know the difficulty is collecting the data. I can address that separately, but we go to 5 or 10 or 15 medical device companies that took a non-invasive device through the FDA. And we ask them, how much did it cost you? How long did it take you? And those go in the database. Next time you come along and say, I have a non-invasive medical device and I think I'm going to go through the FDA in 6 months, we say, okay, you're a total outlier in this histogram of data that we have collected. Explain to us how you're going to achieve that. Other examples, pharma. What is the bump in valuation as you go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 clinical trials? If you come up with a number, again, that's off the standard method. If you have an e-commerce company that says my cost of customer acquisition is going to be 50 cents, where all other companies have averaged around, $20 plus or minus $5, you have some explaining to do. So methodology of benchmarking in a rigorous fashion.
Reminds me of, I've had this question for a while, people in the past, that is there outcomes data for Olin Cup winners?
Outcomes data for Olin Cup winners. There are, which is 0 exits so far. It's very depressing in a sense. Yeah. So again, this trade-off between not discouraging and yet not buying into a bubble, wasting other people's money. It's very easy to, invest other people's money. It's fun to invest other people's money, but and the country is, very susceptible to bubble building, and hopefully we're not, hopefully we'll bring some reality that this is a tough game that we're playing. Money has no place to go right now. So, interest rates are extremely low. So the money is being incentivized to take bigger risks for any type of return. That too will come and bite us. So how do we deal with this overall situation is what I'm trying to learn from you as I discuss these things with you.
Does your buds count for Olin Cup?
I don't know.
I think your buds may be the one.
Okay. there will be some exits. I don't want to take your time with this, but if we apply the angel statistics, what is the percentage of investments that will bring 0 return? What's the percentage of investments that will return 2 times? Percentage that will return 7 times, etc. If we apply it to a fund, we can get some realistic numbers as to what to expect, except that the incoming deal flow has to be super large. Meaning, if there's a fund that only looks at WashU technologies, the incoming deal flow is so small because the other study is, entire nations' flow coming into the angel groups. If you start a fund and you say we're going to just invest in WashU technologies, you're going to end up inevitably investing in things that you shouldn't have invested in because the deal flow is too small. Again, off the topic a little bit, but all relevant questions. So some of you may already know all this and some of you may not, but why pay for cost of customer acquisition, Google AdWords, when I can just do the organic searches, search engine optimization? Well, because it will take you a long, long time to get up onto that first page, and nobody will even look at the second page typically. So you have to spend money and energy and time, so that's still cost of customer acquisition. In terms of, so this is from Steve Blanks, in terms of business-to-business assessment, validation of a business-to-business opportunity, a venture concept. So, yeah.
I might say something about making it to the top of the search engine.
Yeah.
It's really important to code your page very cleanly.
Yeah.
So if you go onto one of those sites that have those baked pages, pre-made pages for you, and include all this extra code, it's going to take you a while. Be careful if you actually code your own page. It's almost instantaneous.
But it is, I would challenge you, like, okay, design a page for me and then have it come up on the first page.
My page was immediately
What is for what search term?
my name.
Well, how many people are seeking your name on Google? So the idea here is these long-tailed and short-tailed search terms. Long-tailed means, a long description of what your customer may be typing in, like, bakery stores in Central, West, and in St. Louis. Yes, you'll be number 1 on that page. But bakery stores, you will not be number 1 on that page. So that's the long-tailed and short-tailed search term. In other words, there is a lot of people working on SEO, and all of them want to be on page 1. Okay. You should be able to make a ton of money with this. Okay, wonderful.
I did it in 1 month.
Wonderful. Okay.
I did have a very good code.
Okay. You should give your business card to everybody. Very good. No, I believe you. I believe you. Okay, so business to business. I think they have a problem is the starting point, right? So I personally think you have a problem and I can sell you something. Now the next stage is, are you aware that you have a problem? So I'm going to test that in my conversations with you. I'm really happy if you have been actively looking for a solution. And I'll be even happier if you have put together a solution out of piece parts at your company. And in a B2B sense, nirvana is you also have a budget to do. So, we can't fall into the top from the sky. It has to be a series of conversations with the customer to climb up this ladder, because a lot of groups, teams, entrepreneurs, once they have this, I think they have a problem. I, as a data point of 1, think that they have a problem. Off we go, a recipe for failure. So the silly mistakes, I suspect, make up for, we said 6 out of 1,000 hit rate. I'm pretty sure that like 700 of them could have been eliminated right from the get-go. All we have to do is to deploy some, seriousness into the operation here. Another thing that you need to decide in terms of validating your venture concept is this concept of, again, all this stuff is, Google knows all this stuff. So are you hunting for elephants, rabbits, or deers? So hunting for elephants, it's risky. You can get stomped by the elephant, but if you kill it, then you'll feed the town, the village for a long, long time, but you may take special tools to bring them down and so on and so forth. Hunting for rabbits, you have to catch a whole bunch of them in order to feed the village, but they're a little bit easier to kill. Or you can hunt for deer. So if you can't catch one, you can move on to another one. You're not risking your life, but you can still, provide some food for some people. So as you're deciding what type of a business you're in, you may want to think about, am I in the elephant hunting business, rabbit hunting business, or deer hunting business, and what are the implications of that decision that I made? I'm going to just show it to you. I don't think there is anywhere near this type of accuracy, but it's from a source called New Lancaster Strategy, which sounded impressive enough that I thought I'd show it to you. So if you're entering a marketplace where there's a monopoly with 75% or more market share, the conventional wisdom is to expect that you're going to have to spend 3 times what the leader is spending on sales and marketing. Kind of makes sense. And an open market, at least as far as these folks are concerned, is if there is no dominant market share holder, you still have to spend about twice as much as what the leader in that marketplace is spending. So you cannot underestimate the amount of marketing dollars that need to be spent to wedge your way into an area in which there are other players. I have 20 minutes, so this is almost like a book summary. So I'm going to first ask who has read or is familiar with The 4 Steps to the Epiphany by Steve Blank. 1, 2, so few enough people that I can afford to bore you guys a little bit. Just get on Facebook, do whatever you like to do. So the idea of this thinking is the following, that there's a big difference between what established companies do and what startups do. And this leads to the question of, what we teach MBAs versus what we teach founders of startups. Are they the same? Are they different? How should they be the same or different? And the idea here is established companies, the MBAs, are being prepared to join companies that have an existing customer base, and it's an expansion process, whereas in a startup, you're trying to find if there is a market product solution fit before the money runs out, period. That's it. So, especially engineers are prone to thinking in this fashion, which is, get the concept, develop the product, alpha, beta, test it, and then ship the product out. This works fine in an established market, but can be deadly in a startup. This is the example of WebWAN, which I won't deal with. But customers often refuse to behave the way that your business plan said that they were going to behave. Therefore, this methodology, this linear methodology of after the first customer ship, it's a matter of scaling it up, ends up in a deadly spiral. So if you are resistant to responding to the signals that the market is giving back to you, and you start falling into this type of a spiral down. So we wrote the business plan, and the customers are not buying. Well, obviously, we're going to have to fire the VP of sales because he can't sell because we can't be wrong. The next is, we'll fire the VP of marketing because we already changed the salesperson. And so it wasn't the salesperson's fault. It must be the marketing person's fault because he's not creating the demand. So we fire him. Well, still not working. Can't be our fault. Wasn't the salesman's fault because we changed them, not the marketing guy's fault. Now we have to fire the CEO because he must not know what he's doing, and then belly up. Company goes belly up. So this sounds extremely common sense when we're sitting here, but the number of times this happens to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars wasted, as with the example of Webvan, for example, is mind-blowing, actually. So what is the alternative? The alternative is a startup is not a smaller version of a large company. Startups cannot leap over customer learning and discovery and rush to execution, is the main thesis of Steve Blank's approach. So we spend a lot of time in discovering who the customer is, looping around, to validate, then worry about customer creation. So forget about branding and marketing strategy and sales strategy before you understand who the heck the customer is, because the assumption is that you're in a new market with a new product. So in parallel, product development and customer development going together simultaneously. Otherwise, it's a recipe for disaster. To do one but not the other is the theory. So go out into the field and learn how customers work and what their key problems are, and then be honest with yourself to either kill the project or to respond to what it is that customers are telling you. Again, an infinite number of companies have died, startups have died, because of the refusal to do this. It's human nature, I think. I've done it myself too. The baby starts looking prettier and prettier and prettier, and you just can't call it ugly anymore, and then everything goes down the tubes. So acceptance of negative feedback, I think, is very, very critical. So this is a methodology. I think I mentioned this in a prior conversation. So one of the products that I did, the first version was made from cardboard and Scotch tape, and I showed it to surgeons. I went and showed it to surgeons, and they said, no, this won't work, you got to change this, and so on. Again, cardboard and Scotch tape, then printed, 3D printed model, and so on and so forth. And all I was trying to do is give a hint of the solution. Do you have this problem, and am I solving any problem that's of interest to you? And generally speaking, people want to be nice to you, so they'll say, yeah, if you change this and that, it would be good. So be direct with them, how would you rank this problem among all the other problems that you have? If they say it's like number 39, give that up and ask him, okay, what's your number one problem then? And move on to that one. So I guess all I'm saying is, 6 in 1,000 is extremely depressing, but there are some very common sense things to do to reduce that failure rate. Yeah.
How did you even get to talk to the surgeons?
So one of the things that we showed was playing poker versus playing chess, being street smart versus being book smart, and so on. So entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is about leveraging anything that you can leverage maximally. So I played every card. Student card, I know this guy card, any card that I could play, I played. Another example, I may have covered this in prior workshops. So it is very important to be street smart. Give you an example. So I apologize for those who have heard this before. So the federal government has a program whereby they give grants. It's called the Small Business Innovation Research. $150,000 phase 1, $1 million phase 2. And you can only spend that money on research and development. You can't spend that money to go to trade shows. You can't spend that money to pay for air conditioning or anything else. So the normal book smart way is to say, well, them are the rules, and I have to obey the rules. So while still obeying the rules, here is this street smart thing that I did. If I wasn't born in Turkey, I wouldn't have done it, I'm sure. But what we said was, okay, the NIH wants us to present a very complex system to them, otherwise they're not going to fund, easy things to do. So when we talked about the possible grant applications that we could submit, we would make a list, and then we would look to see which one of these has a component of the more complex system that we can quickly commercialize and start selling, a component of a large system. So we would get the $1 million of NIH funding, and the first money would go to making that component immediately. So that we would finish that component, put it in the marketplace, start generating some revenue, then start spending the rest of the money in making the complex system. And we would not apply for a grant application unless if there was such a component. Otherwise, we're just spinning our wheels and just using grant monies to, pass through money. Money coming in, money going out. There was nothing, I would argue, there was nothing unethical about it. It was just a matter of choice. We carefully selected our battles to win. That was all there was to it. We explained to the NIH that this is a complex system. This is a component of that complex system that has to be there in order for it to work. The NIH says, okay, here you go, $1 million. Then it's up to our discretion as to which parts do we start off building first. Giving this as an example of, the type of street smartness that you need to have to create yourself a little advantage in this tough area. Okay, so I'm not going to go through these. Yeah, maybe a few more important things. So repeatability is the name of the game. Not building a sales organization for a startup, but building a roadmap to sales success. What does that mean, building a roadmap to sales success? So instead of these heroic efforts at, I sold them the goods, this one guy. The idea is to understand and document and to critique what process worked in selling this guy, and now can I apply that process to the next person. So the first sales are to what they call early evangelists. So they're evangelists, they like your product, and they're early people. The idea is to use them to understand the process. What process of selling worked for you? What questions did they ask? What answers did you give? Who was trying to destroy you, like the insiders that don't want you to sell them a product because they're the people within the company who were used to building that product inside of the company. They'll try to sabotage you. How did you work with them, and what did you learn, and what you can apply? Yeah, so these are the type of questions that you're asking yourself each time you make a sale. Instead of congratulating yourself that you made a sale, analysis of that sale and lessons learned from that sale. As I mentioned, I didn't spend much time congratulating myself about, 3 successful companies. I was much more focused on what enabled me to be an outlier in this field. Same way of thinking here also. Okay, just for everybody's benefit, hopefully, wanted to show those people who were not in the prior workshops. So first I want to carefully try to explain what this tool is meant to do. So this tool has limited use. I will be the first one to admit it. What are its uses? The first use is as an educational tool. Maybe in the next workshop or at some point I will ask you each, do you know what these terms mean? What do I mean by total available market? What do I mean by served available market? What do I mean by innovators, early adapters? What do I mean by sales cycle, churn rate? Now you know cost of customer acquisition, etc., etc. So this is, what do I mean by pre-money? What do I mean by industry average exit multiple of net earnings after taxes, etc., etc.? seed investors' ROI potential in 5 years, etc. So I'm going to claim that this is a fairly exhaustive list of terminology that you need to know extremely well as a founder, number one. Number two, I'm asking you to tell me your assumptions for each of these parameters going all the way 5 years out. And as the gentleman said, who knows what's going to happen 5 years down the line. But I'm still going to force you to make some guesses because this is an internally consistent document. What that means is that your growth rate that you're projecting has an impact on the type of investment that you're going to need, for example, as we showed you previously in that Excel. Within this is contained actually your strategy. Are you assuming a slower growth rate in terms of market share capture? Are you, kicking on the gas? I can read you through this formulation. The third idea is the following. Once you fill these in, the back end of this Excel will automatically calculate, based on your assumptions, your profit and loss on a year-by-year basis. So the first year you're going to lose, you are saying with your assumptions, you're going to lose $300,000. Next year, 1.7 million, etc., etc. Here is what your balance sheet looks like, cash flow, and then here is how what's going to happen to your investors. How much money are they going to make? How much are they going to be diluted when the next round of investment comes, etc.? So these are sanity checks that we're making across the board based on your original assumptions that you gave me. This will, when you change a single cell over here, the whole thing recalculates itself, thus giving us the ability to do sensitivity analysis. The third component is that I have, as well as all investors, have a rough sense as to the distribution of performance matrix for any vertical that you can throw at us. Remember I said medical device company, minimally invasive. I know how long and how much it's going to get through the FDA. Why? Because I've seen so many applications come in. I think I've seen something like 6,000 applications for investment from all domains, all of which gives us little trickles of information that we accumulate in a brain database as opposed to a formalized database. So I can see rather quickly if you're an outlier or whether you're in the ballpark. It's okay to be an outlier, but you have to explain to me why I should believe you as an outlier. And if you're an outlier, companies come to us and present themselves as outliers. And what they're saying to us is, look how special I am. I'm going to be much better than everybody else. Our translation is, you're a higher risk profile than other companies, and therefore we're going to drive down your valuation because your risk is too high, higher than other companies. So this, in the final analysis, beyond being a teaching tool, this is a platform for founders and investors to have a reasonable quantitative discussion about what? Not about picking winners, but about assessing risk-reward ratio. What is the risk? What is the reward? So that we can have a reasonable discussion as opposed to a hand-waving discussion. So I'd like to hear some pushback on the usefulness of this type of a tool, why it would not be useful. Sir?
Well, it's all projected. There's no real numbers to be.
Yeah. Okay. Two responses to you. The first one, and I thank you for reminding me of this. So the other, which is the other use of this product. So we use this as a portfolio monitoring tool. What I mean by that is when year one is over, this is what you projected. Now year one is over. And we invested in you already. What I want you to do is to replace year one's assumptions by year one's reality and reforecast based on what history showed you so that we get to see a crystallization, this reduction of uncertainties as time goes on, because we're now married. I invested in you. I have to monitor and track. So the standard income statement, balance sheet, profit and loss, and cash flow, and so on, does not give me, as an investor, the type of information that I'm looking for, which is cost of customer acquisition, churn rate, how much are you spending on your employees, what's the revenue per employee, and so on and so forth.
I mean, the other thing is that you're doing a proctology report on somebody that's trying to get something off the ground. I mean, so they may not submit to that.
Then they don't get my money. But
Plenty of money out there.
I know, but see, are we being a little bit lazy by that type of thinking, which is there's plenty of money out there, so why be rigorous?
Anyone who's an organized investor is going to make you go to this, right?
Yeah.
This also validates the fact that you were thinking about all the issues that they have to likely increase. This is like the NFL Combine. How quick you run, how high you jump. The likelihood of your success in a business and managing the business.
A spreadsheet that's got 6 different, sheets that are interconnected with a sanity check. That's a little
No.
more rigorous than most people.
The founder is only asked to fill in the first page. The rest of it I did the hard way. It's all automated.
More power to you. I'm not suggesting. I'm just stating.
You're saying even this is too much work.
You had asked for reasons why this.
Yeah.
And I said, 1, it's based on projected data. 2, you're not going to get people that are going to submit themselves.
Yeah.
That are startup people aren't going to submit to that level of scrutiny.
So I'm going to tell you that every company,
Get your money, but they'll get somebody else's.
yeah, so every company that we invested in has done this, and we wouldn't invest in any company that refuses to do this for the reasons that this gentleman says. And more importantly, I would qualify the easy money as silly money that is corrupting the system by not demanding this type of rigor. Without this type of rigor, we're wasting probably other people's money, or money that we made by our grandfather bought some land and sat on it. It's easy money. It's the definition of easy money. We know how difficult it is to make money. We know how tough it was to be an entrepreneur. We went through this. If you want my money, you have to go through this also, is our approach.
I don't have a problem with the brass tacks approach. I'm just pointing out that not everybody that comes up with an idea that wants to bring to market is going to go through that degree of rigor, nor are they going to go ahead and project numbers that are going to have any real meaningful value into the projections, because you don't know how well something's going to sell until you actually have it out.
I think the bigger question is, are we doing a disservice or a service by demanding this type of rigor from founders?
I think that it's both and. It's a both and. You're going ahead and you're getting something for it, but you may be getting more funny numbers.
If I wasn't benchmarking, maybe, yes, ma'am.
Well, 2 things. One on that, and then this is a quote, but it's easy to lie with statistics. It's very hard to tell the truth without them. So I think that's your approach, is let's use something and be evidence-based.
Yeah.
To your question, when I was playing with this, I had a hard time with the per unit. I mean, just to give you some feedback, because we were looking at putting something on top of Amazon Web Services, so then it would be whoever uses